Okay, so I'm back for Job 29. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's sort of a window into his character and what he was really doing over there. And it's just really beautiful. Like, he was rich, but this is how he carried himself. So here we go. Job further continued his discourse and said, "Oh, that I were as in months past, as in the days when God watched over me, when his lamp shone upon my head, and when by his light I walked through darkness. Just as I was in the days of my prime, when the friendly counsel of God was over my tent, when the Almighty was yet with me, when my children were around me, when my steps were bathed with cream, and the rock poured out rivers of oil for me. When I went out to the gate by the city, when I took my seat in the open square, the young men saw me and hid, and the aged arose and stood. The princes refrained from talking and put their hand on their mouth. The voice of nobles was hushed, and their tongue stuck to the roof of their mouth. When the ear heard, then it blessed me, and when the eye saw, then it approved me." So he had a lot of honor around him, okay? They knew this was a righteous dude, okay? So, now here it goes on. "Because I delivered the poor who cried out, the fatherless, and the one who had no helper. The blessing of a perishing man came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. I was eyes to the blind, and I was feet to the lame. I was a father to the poor, and I searched out the case that I did not know." I'll come back to that. "I broke the fangs of the wicked and plucked the victim from his teeth." So, I mean, he was righteous. You can see all these wonderful things. This was his character. I mean, no wonder God would brag about him, right? And here, this thing is so, it might not look like much, but it's so important. "I searched out the case that I did not know." If you don't know about something, or it might be about a person or something, and people will be so quick to, if they make an assumption, it's always a false one. I mean, it's always a negative one. It's always negative. They just love to think evil of others and condemn them quickly. And what you need to do is research a matter and find out the truth. So, like, he would make a good judge, right? Not condemning the innocent before evidence came. So, anyway, it's so great. Okay, let me wait for that noise and then I'll go on. 18. Then I said, I shall die in my nest and multiply my days as the sand. My root is spread out to the waters, and the dew lies all night on my branch. My glory is fresh within me, and my bow is renewed in my hand. Men listened to me and waited, and kept silence for my counsel. So he had wisdom, and, he shared it. And they listened to him and they respected him. Even the elderly did that, it said. And in other places in the Bible, it says, this is interesting too, like, there's a little more here, but the elderly, like, it says things about elderly people, really, elderly, like the younger people were supposed to stand up when they walked in a room or something. So they were supposed to be given honor. And, you know, do we see that today here? No, it's the exact opposite. And people are shamed for their age, like, oh, you have gray hair. Why aren't you coloring it? Well, I'll tell you what, I have white hairs coming in all over. I'm not coloring it. Like, you don't like it? That's your problem. But this is a sign of maturity of many things, and I like it. So it's going to stay right where it is. Anyway, but in contrast to what it said in other places, he was so respected and honored that they stood up for him. That is really, it may not look like it if you don't know the background, but that's really a sign. They looked up to Job, okay? They knew he was, that's the thing, he was doing right. They knew he was doing right. When you're helping the orphans and the widows and the poor and the ones who have physical handicaps and things, and you're really helping them, that is the badge of righteousness. So he had it and they knew it. So there was no argument about that. Okay, 22. After my words, they did not speak again, and my speech settled on them as dew. They waited for me as for the rain, and they opened their mouth wide as for the spring rain. If I mocked at them, they did not believe it, and the light of my countenance they did not cast down. I chose the way for them and sat as chief. So I dwelt as a king in the army, as one who comforts mourners. So they really did, come to him for help and look up to him and respect him and everything. So, he was well known as well as wealthy, and he used his wealth for good. He helped those in need. So, and that was how he was. So this is the character of Job. So I just wanted to share that. Now in 30 it goes on, and here what happens to him later is he gets mocked by all these people, and it's pretty, sad. It just shows the depravity of humanity and how they were treating him because of his misfortune. And it even says things about, let me see, it was almost funny. Oh, yeah. But now they mock at me, men younger than I, whose fathers I disdained to put with the dogs of my flock. So these were really low people, okay, and they were mocking him. That's so typical. But it just goes on with this sort of thing. What was happening to him. They were, looking for this other thing I saw. Well, anyway, it's somewhere here, but it just goes on with how bad the youth were. And oh, it was just so. Maybe it's in another spot, but oh, here. Let me see. Yeah, I'll just read this because it's a little bit like Isaiah 53. Many parts are a little bit at least. Okay. Oh, here, this is good too. Oh, okay. Um, they were sons of fools, yes, sons of vile men. They were scourged from the land. So, and now I am their taunting song. Yes, I am their byword. They abhor me. They keep far from me. They do not hesitate to spit in my face, because he has loosed my bowstring and afflicted me. They have cast off restraint before me. At my right hand, the ramble arises. They push away my feet, and they raise against me their ways of destruction. They break up my path. They promote my calamity. They have no helper. It goes on like this, but a lot of this really does describe the youth of today, uh, especially, I mean, things I've seen in the school system, okay, the public schools. Wow. I mean, and other teachers will verify that, but it's so bad. They have no restraint. They are literally sadistical. Okay, so I'm not saying everyone, but it's a commonplace thing now. And this just, when I read passages like this, I'm just reminded of that. That's how they were. Yep. So, anyway, but God's judgment comes to everyone. And that's it. Okay, now, yeah, so this is all that kind of what he's suffering from people in the community. And it's really, really sad. Okay, now 31. Here, this one. I'll read it all. I have made a covenant with my eyes. Why then should I look upon a young woman? For what is the allotment of God from above, and the inheritance of the Almighty from on high? Is it not destruction for the wicked and disaster for the workers of iniquity? Does he not see my ways and count all my steps? So this is a good verse to use for one of the problems that's come up with men, today via technology. Okay, if I have walked with falsehood, or if my foot has hastened to deceit, let me be weighed on honest scales, that God may know my integrity. If my step has turned from the way, or my heart walked after my eyes, or if any spot adheres to my hands, then let me sow and another eat. Yes, let my harvest be rooted out. If my heart has been enticed by a woman, or if I have lurked at my neighbor's door, then let my wife grind for another, and let others bow down over her. For that would be wickedness, yes, it would be iniquity deserving of judgment. For that would be a fire that consumes to destruction, and would root out all my increase. In other words, like he hasn't done any of this. If I have despised the cause of my male or female servant, when they complained against me, what then shall I do when God rises up? When he punishes, how shall I answer him? Did not he who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one fashion us in the womb? If I have kept the poor from their desire, or cause the eyes of the widow to fail, or eaten my morsel by myself, so that the fatherless could not eat of it. But from my youth I reared him as a father, and from my mother's womb I guided the widow. If I have seen anyone perish for lack of clothing, or any poor man without covering, if his heart has not blessed me, and if he was not warmed with the fleece of my sheep, if I have raised my hand against the fatherless, when I saw I had help in the gate, like a crowd of bullies, okay? Then let my arm fall from my shoulder, let my arm be torn from the socket. For destruction from God is a terror to me, and because of his magnificence I cannot endure. If I have made gold my hope, or said to find gold, you are my confidence, if I have rejoiced because my wealth was great, and because my hand had gained much, if I have observed the sun when it shines, or the moon moving in brightness, so that my heart has been secretly enticed, and my mouth has kissed my hand, this also would be an iniquity deserving of judgment, for I would have denied God who is above. If I have rejoiced at the destruction of him who hated me, or lifted myself up when evil found him, indeed I have not allowed my mouth to sin by asking for a curse on his soul. If the men of my tent have not said, who is there that has not been satisfied with his meat? But no sojourner had to lodge in the street, for I have opened my doors to the traveler. That's what they did back then. It was just hospitality. If I have covered my transgressions as Adam, by hiding my iniquity in my bosom, because I feared the great multitude and dreaded the contempt of families, so that I kept silence and did not go out of the door. Oh, that I had one to hear me. Here is my mark. Oh, that the Almighty would answer me, that my prosecutor had written a book. Surely I would carry it on my shoulder and bind it on me like a crown. I would declare to him the number of my steps. Like a prince I would approach him. If my land cries out against me, and its furrows weep together, if I have eaten its fruit without money, or caused its owners to lose their lives, then let thistles grow instead of wheat, and weeds instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. So, this is his defense. Like, I haven't done these things. He did all this good stuff instead and not any of the bad stuff. So, that is a good window into his character. And it really was true. And it was even testified by God that he was blameless and righteous. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that was his character. See, okay, now that's it for this. Now I'm going to come back and do one last one here. So here we go. Like, Elihu contradicts his friends. I did this. Elihu contradicts Job. He proclaims God's justice. Then we have Elihu condemns self-righteousness. Okay. He proclaims God's goodness. So, some things he says are fine. And 37, he goes on. And then in 38, God comes in and answers Job. And that goes on for a while. 39, 40. And then Job answers God. So, yeah, and then he just basically says the message of, well, my ways are above your ways, my wisdom is higher than yours, and I'm the one that knows what I'm doing. It just goes on. So, chapters of that. So, you can read that. And then Job, sees that. So, he responds in that way. And then it goes on where they're just having that kind of a conversation in 40 and 41. And then 42, I could just read it now and combine it. So, okay, 42. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know, let me move it here. I know that you can do everything, and that no purpose of yours can be withheld from you. You asked, who is this who hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. You said, I will answer you, and you shall answer me. I will question you, and you shall answer me. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. And so it was, after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, that the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is aroused against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, and my servant Job has. See, so that goes back to refuting all that false doctrine. Okay, now therefore take for yourselves 7 bulls and 7 rams. Go to my servant Job and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering, and my servant Job shall pray for you. For I will accept him, lest I deal with you according to your folly, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. So this is a humbling moment for these 3, right? So Eliphaz the Temanite and Bildad the Shuhite and Zophar the Naamathite went and did as the Lord commanded them, for the Lord had accepted Job. And the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. Indeed, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then all his brothers, all his sisters, and all those who had been his acquaintances before came to him and ate food with him in his house, and they consoled him and comforted him for all the adversity that the Lord had brought upon him. Each one gave him a piece of silver and each a ring of gold. Now the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he called the name of the first Jemimah, the name of the second Keziah, and the name of the third Karen Hapuk. In all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. This is very revolutionary back then, just so you know, even that their names are mentioned. And first, well, he doesn't even mention the sons' names, so that's kind of interesting. It's like a remarkable thing back then. So, anyway, after this, Job lived 140 years and saw his children and grandchildren for 4 generations. So Job died, old and full of years. Okay, so he was blessed more than before. All right, and then altogether he had 20 kids and the others were in heaven. So, okay, but so that pretty much wraps this up. And I mean, I've already said everything, like what was going on behind the scenes all throughout both videos. And so this is just a happy ending part of it. And that is it. God's purposes are above ours. And that's kind of the message of Job. So it all works out for good in the end. And that's it. Okay, so that's Job. And tomorrow I'll be back and I'll do Ecclesiastes. Have a blessed evening.